So line 1 of Tantoy has an opening, has some movements that kind of work like this, and it has some closing movements kind of like that. But those are not the things that we want to talk about today. The meat and potatoes of Tantoy is a section that's repeated over and over again, and that's the part we want to look into. So that starts with a long punch. We call it a yoke punch. Looks kind of like this. There's some hand movements and a short punch on the opposite side. Some similar hand movements. Balance, kick, step down, and do the long punch on the other side. And then you just, this pattern just keeps repeating from side to side, side to side. The story is that these guys that started this style are some of the, I mean, if we go way back to the Tang Dynasty, where these guards that knew this style accompanied caravans through the mountains, they would practice this as the caravan moved. And the story is they would do about 20 to 25 kilometers worth of Tantoy every day to start their day off as the caravan moved. So if we break this sequence down, the first thing that you do stance-wise is you step into this bow stance. So the bow stance has some common traits that are shared between styles. You shift forward, most of the weight is on your front leg. This leg is back. It was a leg that pushed my weight, center of gravity forward, and then as it was traveling I performed a punch. This stance should be structured so that when you step forward, you don't have to change the position of your leg very much. So sometimes people will do this stance and it might be something like this. Well, it can get very long if you do it something like this and very low. But in reality, if you need to be agile and you want to move even forward, this has to move a long ways. So every time you want to move, you have to reposition your leg and your body, and it's actually kind of slow. So what you want to do when you jump into this stance is you want to land in a position where when you need to move this leg, there's not much that has to happen here. So that's an important part of the structure of what we consider a good bow stance in Chaquan. So even before this stance, what you people or myself, I used to gloss over, was that there's something happening between here and here, and there's some important principles. And one of these principles is kind of at the end of the opening in Chaquan, is the body method. And so, I could talk for days about this, but just briefly, you want to assume a body position that's a little bit similar to a military kind of position, but then you want to let your shoulders down, you keep everything here, and then you want to tighten this up, which kind of rolls your hips under a little bit. So this the body is actually very erect, but the shoulders are relaxed, and the lower abdomen carries some strength in it. Everything is relaxed but straight. The other thing is your neck should be very straight. Your head should be pushing upwards, and but with a relaxed force that kind of draws the energy from your feet right up to the top of your head. That's the idea. So there's some points that you would look at that, so some of them are called roots, some of them are just called extremities, and there's a system of points that places in your body that need to line up. But the basic thing is that your torso is erect and not slouched. And what that allows you to do is really turn very quickly. So you want to keep this actually, and you want to have your head and your foot in alignment. So if you're standing out here, then you have some balance that you'll always have to recover before you move. So this is, for a lot of reasons, it's called the first palace. And your head is over your foot, you have the proper body position, and you carry that through this step. So, if you didn't carry it, you could do something like this. I'm exaggerating just so you can see, or you can do something like this or this when you step down. But from this starting position with this posture, you want to come back here and just immediately hit the ground with this leg positioned properly over this foot with your body method undisturbed, so you still have a kind of erect posture in your spine, your shoulders are still down, you still carry some tension in here, and it just presses your body forward enough to be able to express power that you generated through this movement forward. So that's kind of the first principle, and you know what? It's used everywhere. If you were just walking, just switching from one stance to another, you want to maintain this posture. It's called the first palace. So that's kind of two important principles that you work on as you jump into this stance with the punch. And they're pretty far-reaching. They affect a lot of things. So the other thing that happens with that first punch, we call this the second palace. And so in the first palace, that was the root of your movement, was your feet, your head was an extremity, and your waist was a kind of a balancing mechanism. In the second palace, you have your shoulder, which is a root, and your hand, which is an extremity, and your elbow remains flexible. Some people they write in the classics, let your elbows hang. They don't mean you have to assume a position where your elbow is at its lowest point, but they mean you don't apply power by putting strength into your elbow, and don't make it stiff so that it loses its ability to control the force that's generated from your shoulder. So when you create force with shoulder movement, and you want to throw it to your fist, you need to maintain a certain amount of softness here to control it. It's kind of like if you want to take a plastic straw and make it penetrate a plastic lid over a cup of Coca-Cola or something. You can't just push it. You have to kind of have a little bit of adjustment as you push it in, and then it finds that place where all the force transfers to the tip and goes through the lid, and away you go. That principle, by the way, is called Cha, which is one of the things that people refer to when they call this Chaquan. It's called inserting. So this is a method of inserting. The big story is that Cha was somebody's name that the style is named after, but both of those stories circulate. So here it is. So this palace, the second one, is you turn from your waist, but you put the force into your shoulders, and then you let this force fly through directly to your fist, and with literally no tension in your forearm. So this is just Chaquan's a different kind of style. The energy is relaxed, and it's clear, and it's focused, right? So here, there's none of this kind of movement in your body has to focus on a whole bunch of different movements. Just very clearly, use this palace up here. This is the root, and let that force transfer to your fist. That first palace is it governs all the movement, and there's other palaces in your body that are carried by it. So really, when we step up to do this punch, we want to maintain the structure of the first pelvis, and on top of that the second pelvis just rides. So this punch is like this, right? So that transferred the force generated from my center of mass, which was moving, carried by the first pelvis, and it transferred that to the root of this, my punch, which is my shoulder, and my shoulder and my elbow manipulated that strength to appear at this extremity. So that's a little bit of theory behind this punch, and it's quite intricate. You can study this in depth. There's a lot of physics involved, but those are the main points, and if you practice those, you'll find all the other stuff inside of your Tantoy. But without these movements, it won't really be Chaquan. It'll be stiff, or it'll be just, you know, using very relying on muscles alone, which again is kind of dead in the theory of Chaquan. This is about, you need to be strong, you need to use your muscles, but you need to unite the energy in your body with your muscles, and that's you have to build your muscles, and you have to relax to harmonize the energy in your body with those muscles when you use them. Yep, I could really talk for a long time about this first piece, but that's enough for now. This video can't be too long. So again, right here, there is an opening movement, and if I do this side here, just out to this point, this knee is over here. This leg needs to be straight. This is a kind of Tantoy right here, springing leg that manages this whole thing. So you get to here. There's some movements here that are, you know, there's an elbow, there's a back fist, but it can be more than that. It can be like you make a connection, and this is ways that you can move and listen to another person's movements with physical contact, and then use this pelvis for the next punch. Same thing here. Turn your foot, and then slide up, and make sure that you have the first pelvis moving, working for you. Lift this leg up, and you balance here. So in this pelvis, you use your hips for the balance, and then use your hip like you use your shoulder, whoop, and it throws out this punch. So what I'm trying to say is your hip moves, just like your shoulder moved. And the force appears at your foot, and your knee becomes like your elbow. It has to relax and direct that force right through the tip of your foot. So again, from position here, turn your foot, raise your elbow, fist goes forward, use the first pelvis to balance, kick, and in this form you'll step down, and now you just started your kick, hook, to the other side. So you make those movements, these movements, and go at that quick. Yeah, so the three sort of manifestations of power are the punches, right, and the kick. So that's three uses of power. Those are the three big ones that people focus on to begin with, but what we've just kind of covered is a lot of material that underlies those three uses of power. The movement of the body, the structure of the body as you move, the accuracy of your limbs when you're stepping, and just the overall need to relax and let your structure do the work in hopefully a well-conditioned body. So that's it for line one. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and I hope you delve into this on your own. I'm sure you'll find many secrets buried into it as well. All right, thanks. Bye for now.